Hello, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day, and welcome to Week 5 of the Collegiate Call of Duty League. I hold shift. With me, I've got Proper, and we've got some pretty high-octane matches coming throughout the evening, starting with a battle in Ohio, which is largely what this pool is. It's a lot of schools from Ohio, but these two in particular, as you see on the top of your screen, well, it's not just a battle for potentially do you need to be in the top 25, but who may exit their pool number 1 before we get into stage number 2. Proper. I feel it, man. I'm a little upset you didn't wear any pink today. I was kind of assuming you were going to.
I honestly, so I'm sitting here laughing because I was slowly looking at the cameras. I was like, I can't tell what exact color the polo is. I felt like you were wearing the pink polo. And when I picked out the polo from my closet, I was like, you know, I'm going to go with the nice white striped polo today. Alan's probably going to wear a nice cardigan or something. But he whips out the pink polo on me.
It's Valentine's Day.
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling pretty good. You know, I was really looking forward to this match when it did get listed this past weekend. Not to mention how we get to cast it over top of each other, because this has, you know, a lot of running to be a really good matchup, considering, again, like you said, are you going to be good enough to be in the top 25, looking at you Buckeyes, or are the Akron Zips going to be able to solidify themselves as the number 1 team in this pool?
It's going to be a big one as we continue to kind of lead into stage 1 is about to come to a conclusion here in the next 2 weeks. And with that, then we start to differentiate between all of the top tier teams versus the lower tier teams, regrouping them together. And stage 2 is about to be an unreal affair where everyone will play up against each other in their same region, but you won't play the same team that you already played in your division. This kind of gives you the layout there. So these two teams are an important one to figure out who comes away number 1, although I think both of them are going to feel pretty comfortable when it comes down to the idea of them getting into that top tier cut going into the second stage. So with more on the squads overall, let's talk Akron, because this Akron Zips team, they have been very vocal on Twitter about needing to be in the top 25. And so far, perfect record, only dropping a couple of maps. I would say that they've merited at least an entry into that top 25, but as we continue to kind of talk about here, will they actually be able to retain it? Because this Ohio State team is very good.
Yeah, definitely. This Buckeye COD team is definitely something you can't bat an eyelash at. They have one loss on record so far, but when it comes down to the Akron Zips, again, first and foremost, perfect record as far as series is concerned. But dropping those 2 search and destroys might be questionable to be able to uphold that top 25 position. Obviously, being undefeated, you definitely merit yourself to be that 24th rank overall. But that 3-6 loss versus Wright State and that 1-6 loss versus Miami of Ohio, that's definitely something that you want to be a little aware of when we go into this matchup as a whole. When you're taking a look at this head-to-head, when you're considering the odds, that from top to bottom, as far as the Buckeyes are concerned, they do have an overall loss as far as series record is concerned. The big stark difference that they got 0-3'd by Miami University of Ohio.
Yeah, that was kind of a surprising result, especially considering that we've seen this Ohio State team play early in the year. And I think a lot of people looked at that matchup saying, oh, it looks like Ohio State's going to be kind of on cruise control through it. But yeah, a bit surprising. But hey, that happens, especially in the new starts of a game, and especially with how recently control had been added for these teams going into the 3rd week of them actually having this available to play. So, you know, there could have been some finesse that was kind of happening in those instances, but we take a look at Akron in particular here in this head-to-head matchup, and this is where I think a lot of people are excited to see what Akron can actually put to the table, because, flatly speaking, they've only dropped 2 maps, sure, and yeah, some of the results were not nearly as consistent as you'd like, but the biggest thing when we've seen this Akron team before is that all 4 players are really participating evenly, which is always something that we look forward to here in the CCL when it comes to the potential consistency of a team at large.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. The one thing that definitely sticks out to me more than anything is you take a look at this Akron Zips roster, Storm, Thieves, Bio, and Arcseas, is Bio. Bio was that one player last time that we actually saw them on broadcast that definitely popped off more than probably a lot of people were expecting to. Has a lot of fans in the chat. I know he's got some family in the chat as well, Shift. And this young buck of Bio definitely has something to bring to the table. You know how I feel about the flex players in a game like Vanguard. Bio is that guy that can do it all when it comes down to both the Automaton and as well as the MP40 when it comes down to these maps.
Yeah, definitely a team that, you know, we'll see how good they're going to be here, because this is an important matchup in the scheme of a lot of different things. We look at over the Ohio State Buckeyes and what can Buckeye COD bring to the table today. This is interesting because this is definitely a team that, you know, a school, rather, I should say, an organization in the past that has merited a lot of favor. And there was a lot of questions, you know, coming off of a pretty poor season, kind of mediocre season in Modern Warfare, okay season in Cold War. Would they be able to get back to what they had proved back in the Black Ops 4 year? And Round has put together a solid team of 4 that absolutely has merited the favor that we expect. It just comes down to the surprising loss, as you had mentioned from before. Can they establish themselves as, okay, that was just a fluke loss? They would need to do that here in this matchup.
Look, again, just to go back to that loss, it was close. 243, 250 on the hard point, round 11 in the search and destroy. The only thing that really sticks out is that they got 3-1 on the control. Don't know what that map was, don't really care. It's just the simple fact that you got 3-1 on the control where things more often than not do go to a round 5. But, I mean, now you have the opportunity again to basically say whether or not it was a fluke. But I think what you're mostly looking at when it comes down to this squad, like you say, Round has been given a great opportunity to be able to put a solid 4 roster together. And this chemistry that Buckeyes are able to bring to the table is something that you can absolutely write home about, Alan. It's something that I look forward to every single week when I get to see the Ohio State University play some Call of Duty.
Well, let's take a look to see what this best-of-5 map set will look like, and, well, there's not going to be a lot of diversity here, as we'll have Berlin for the 1st and the 5th, and then 3 Tuscans lined up in the middle. And here, I'll say this much, I think it's pretty safe to say that for Vanguard, these are the preferred maps for all the modes.
Oh, yeah.
So there is no excuse here about, we just did not, get a lot of time on a map like Gavudu, which is obviously super AR heavy and very much so demands you to play good timings. We didn't get a lot of time on Buckeye, which, let's be honest, as much as we consider it a very scrappy map where FMGs dominate, Atlanta FaZe has started to turn that conversation on its head a little bit. So there really are no excuses in my mind when it comes to this. You've got 2 of the more straightforward maps in Vanguard, arguably, if not definitively, the 2 best maps in Vanguard. You have to play just good mechanical Call of Duty. I don't think we're going to see very many map shenanigan-based things in this series set with what we have in front of us.
The only thing that, might throw a wrench in the system is when we do get down to that Tuscan Search and Destroy, right? I mean, that's a certain point in time where you can end up seeing a little bit of instance as far as, let's just quad rush something, obviously, but you could also get a little bit more methodical when it comes down to Tuscan Search and Destroy. All the different avenues and angles to be able to force your way through the map will also be quite telling, especially for 2 teams that are standing as far as the podium is concerned at the end of this first stage for us, Alan, what they can offer. Set nades are going to be something that I'm obviously going to be taking a look at. And as far as the progression and the transition that we've gone from infancy phase in Vanguard, where we are now, say, in the preteen, mid-teen phase now for Vanguard, this has to really be a mainstay when it comes down to Tuscan Search and Destroy. To be able to throw those wrenches in the system, those set nades can absolutely be everything. But you're right, when it comes down to these 5 maps that we have, or just the 2 venues that we have to offer for ourselves for the 3 different game modes, Alan, definitely has a certain offering that you have to play nice, controlled, fundamental Call of Duty.
Here we go. Berlin, map number 1. Both teams boast a very strong hardpoint record. As mentioned, for the Zips, only 2 map losses. Both of them came in search. For Ohio State, just to re-hit in case you're joining us a little bit late, just the marginal loss to Miami from a week or 2 ago. So now it's down to, again, prove to us that was a fluke if you're an Ohio State fan in this instance. And I think the biggest thing, too, is just tempo and speed. I think that will very largely dictate the battle between... That's what we always look for. We get out of the conversation of, do all 4 players play well? Both teams, the answer should be yes. But at what speed, I think, is the follow-up that I think that very well could determine who has an advantage in this map as we jump on in. And for Akron, nice little contest from the front so far. A number of members, though, from the Buckeyes making their way around the back, and that flank will be successful to lock up some early time.
Yeah, that's going to be quite potent, isn't it? I mean, you definitely want to be able to get yourself inside the office early. If you can cement yourself inside the office early, even for P1 in the opening rip, look how much time is still left. And the way that you're holding yourself right now for the Buckeyes, you actually have an opportunity to be able to read Akron one more time. Clearly, they want to hit this scrap time. Definitely don't want to be giving that up. What can Adi do inside the corner? Has 2 more players through the front door. Will be cut down, but job is done. You got yourself 20 seconds going away from P1. Now you can take a look at the rotation going over to 2.
Ohio State already over to the top side of the minimap, the ideal location to try to zone off to see where exactly the Zips are going to try to break from. But the first 2 eliminations are good for Akron. That'll allow them an opportunity to see this opening time, if not maybe even contest for it. Arxes inside, looking to just try to play his life for as long as humanly possible, but Round will not allow that to occur. Ohio State, good in and around the perimeter of the hard point. That'll be nice for some early time here. And now with the Vintage, as he tries to lock down this dockside, knows there's a second contestant, and, well, Bios is going to run right on into him. Vintage for 3 in a row, and Ohio State hold.
Yeah, great hold on the rotation. Again, it got a little bit slippery, didn't it, when the Zips were able to find those 2 rotational kills, but now it's just about locking down what is supposed to be a big money hill here on Berlin, and they're doing a great job. And even Round, thinking about the future, now on a 5 spree, is able to get themselves that glide bomb. Again, we're not playing the CDL streaks right now, so get that 5 for the glide. Trying to slip the net. Has a good look for 6, but won't be able to find it as Storm does cut them down. But winning the battle on 2 fronts so far, Round, winning the rotation, getting themselves a massive amount of time on 2, and they're locking the rotation down to 3.
I'm glad that you brought up the war on two fronts thing, because there was a lot of trust for Ohio State that Packin was going to be able to survive on the scrap time for free with about 25 seconds to fight for. Won a crucial 1v1 to lock in the time, and now Ohio State will benefit not just off this initial setup, but with the proximal spawns as we head on into lobby. The Zips, once again, good on rotation to at least get here from the front, but wait a second. It's a split spawn situation for the Ohio State University, and with that, I don't know if Akron is going to recognize that there is a play coming from behind. Arxies will start to realize that, but gets caught in the reload, and Vintage on 6 in a row has broken, and that means that we have had two different Buckeye members pulling together massive streaks, and the Zips are sitting here with essentially nothing so far through 3 hills.
Well, Bio is on 5, right? So you do have that glide bomb to be able to be played with, but you need to be able to transition those kills and these opportunities from being able to get map positioning into hardpoint time. Bio's up on top 3rd here in Fire. They have a great angle to be able to watch players coming from the front. But again, the spawns are not being locked down when it comes down to the Zips. Here on 3, a little bit more of a west to east type of situation is starting to unfold as Vintage off the spawn from the crane will try to put themselves over back by the warehouse. But Thieves is thinking that they're watching this. But so long as Vintage is holding down in the back of the warehouse, this should ideally start blocking the spawns. More or less will force the Zips to spawn, yeah, right there in the bottom side of office. So they got to know that something's up as Ron calls in the glide to try to open things up.
And the timing of this glide bomb is pretty ideal, I would say. Ohio State getting a lay of the land, kind of the damaging UAV that was that glide bomb. And for Akron, I feel like everything has been, if you were to put a heat map together where the Zips have been so far through these first 4 hardpoints, it is almost 100% exclusively been in the middle of the map. They have played very little off the flanks, not really able to get to the extremities, although this time they do put together at least a successful flank. They get 3, but it doesn't make a difference because round spawns up, gets a double, and clears the pressure. And with that, the Buckeyes back in for the scrap time.
I think this goes back to the conversation. Well, that's all.
Oh, well.
Lamau. This goes back to the conversation that we were having, that you brought up earlier, as far as pace and dictating said pace throughout the entirety of the hardpoint. We're seeing Buckeye COD hardpoint in a nutshell, right? 10-3 start for Vintage. Hell of a start for them. 13, now 14-9 for Round. Everybody is just doing their job, and it's the idea that we're going to get packing inside of the hardpoint to be able to soak up a minute and a half worth of hardpoint time. And Akron are trying to almost accommodate against that. They're trying to play a little bit slower, a little bit more methodical, try to watch their flanks, but while they are playing really steady through the middle of the map, there's tons of avenues that are being exploited by the Buckeyes to be able to get themselves in power positions as Round finds himself on another 4.
I mean, Vintage has died 3 times through an entire rotation of hills. That's just, this is not good if you're an Akron fan. There will be his 4th elimination, and with that, 3 in a row for Akron. So the Zips looking to threaten for some time here on 5, but there's not a lot of time to fight for. And once again, as soon as Ohio State looks like they might be down and out, Round is able to throw one more bit of pressure in to make sure that nothing is comfortable for Akron. Now over to the next rotation. Thieves should have read that there's a second player nearby, but waits for a bit of help, and wisely so, as Bio's able to at least capitalize and find another elimination. And with that, trade will also ensue inside the hardpoint, giving Akron an opportunity to try to contest this new hardpoint from the front.
Holding it, though. You got to know that there's more respawns coming away from the lobby side, and now that it's just Adi that is playing back behind this desk, so annoying there in small room, actually gets the better of Bio. And that actually opens up the floodgates as the rest of the reinforcements for the Buckeyes are able to resurface themselves inside the office. Scary moment now. 40 seconds inside of P1. Allen and Round is just finding so many more free engagements through the outside of the concourse. Has one more in front of him. Luckily enough, Steves will cut them down. There's a lot of isolated gunfights as Akron are just struggling to be able to work their way back inside 1 as you have Bio trying to work a flank just to be able to break this opening hill.
Yeah, it's just the Round and Vintage show right now. And, you know, Adi and Packard is happy to kind of sit inside the hardpoint and soak up time. Thieves will contest, but that's a 1v2 for the better part of 20 seconds, and there will be no further eliminations. So Ohio State in a great position score-wise, over 120 points to the good. And as we look to rotate over to 2, it's actually more of a rotation. You would almost think, looking at the minimap, that we're about to rotate into 4 with how far back everyone's playing. But the pressure from Ohio State leaving no ground whatsoever for Akron to work with. But the good news is on rotation, once again, the Zips provide some eliminations, and they will open up the mailroom to their name.
Got to read where this rotation is coming from. Bio does have the immediate information, but they drop down, and Round's going to catch them off guard inside of the concourse. Now you have more streaks. Vintage finally diving in towards their deep pockets of tricks. That's actually going to force Storm all the way back. That then allows Packin to be able to encroach forward, but luckily enough, again, holding down the initial time for the Zips. This is where they can really entrench themselves to play their type of Call of Duty. Just wait for the engagements to come to them and just pounce on the Buckeyes as they try to approach.
You have to know exactly where this hit is coming from with all the stuns that have connected. Thieves bounces out the window, tries to come back, leaving Arxies responsible for the trade, and will be good for it. So now over the 100-point threshold go the Zips. An important rotation here. Arguably a must-win rotation coming up, and Arxie's on 3 in a row. Gets a read that Packen is in the back. Good help coming through for some even exchanges of kills, but then Round, once again, foiling the entire idea for Akron. Gets another elimination through fire. That'll be good to keep this contest alive, and with Vintage winning the final gunfight in the back, it's going to be the Buckeyes who spawn in favorably for P3.
Round really is the villain of the show for the Zips, right? I mean, every single time it starts to look so good, Round is right there just to foil all of their plans. Bio's going to have to call in this streak. We'll deal with one in the back. It's going to be Vintage, but you're not going to be in a position to be able to block these spawns. He's
exactly
going to be in a just spawning right back up initially where Vintage was at. You're more or less expecting for the push to come through a whole lot faster and a whole lot cleaner, but as Bio resurfaced through P3, we'll be able to get those kills. But again, nobody got in the back crane, Alan, so these spawns still not blocked.
Thing about it is, as we get to the 25-second mark, one pinch could potentially open up some numbers for the Zips. Last gunfight won by Storm. 20 seconds and spawn. Looking good for Zips here on the lobby. And Phoebes is working on rotation through Train. One more player in front of him. This should be a free kill onto Vintage, but nothing feels free versus Vintage. So wait till you get him exposed onto a ladder and then go for Adi on the outside. But cannot finish the kill. And with that, Ohio State can continue to contest here for P4 as the Zips still spawn old.
Zoning away the back. Akron Zips are going to be trying to play for this warehouse spawn. Nice little movement coming through from Adi just to make sure that they guarantee them life. The biggest issue going forward is you have RCs finding a lot of pressure through the middle of the map. Nice nade coming out from Bio. Going to be able to open things up towards the railroad, you would think. But as Phoebes thinks that they are giving themselves a certain amount of opening to be able to work their way through the train side, I thought that Round was going to be in a position to be able to cut them down. It's actually a great collapse that comes through from the Zips. The two players from the warehouse, they clear out the backside of the railroads. Now the Zips, they're in, and they can really start cementing themselves with a lot of damage. Just got to deal with the players from the front, which they are doing in kind. Storm will deal with Vintage. Last player left alive for the Buckeyes. Now the Zips starting to look at the scrap time, potentially close the gap.
Still an interesting interaction will unfold through mid-map as Akron is already kind of splitting away from the hard point, looking for some map control, and they largely have found it. If you can get this kill into Vintage, that is. Easier said than done, but Arxes is able to at least confirm it. So with 3 seconds of scrap time, the Buckeyes, who look to heavily take the scrap time, have now been a little bit thin through the middle of the map. Largely thanks to Arxes in this position. Stun will not connect, so he'll take Round down to the mantle. Vintage down low, also looking to potentially contest this position on the staircase. And well, the threat has been established, and you do not want to challenge Vintage when he's firing as hot as he is right here. 24 and 13, 2 in a row, and an opportunity for Ohio State to get some more time.
It was an egregious challenge coming through from Arxes. I mean, you were in the power position top there. There was no real reason for you to give up this position because now Vintage has an automaton, and now they're going to have the lay of the land. Should be able to cut down Arxes, at least get the information that they're working some statue. Will cut them down as they attempt to get inside P5, and everybody from the Zips are just dropping like flies. That allows Buckeyes to get themselves in. They can still close it here.
There's just not an answer for Round or Vintage in a lot of these 1v1 gunfights outside of maybe Bio. Phoebes, who's been picking things up here in the second rotation, will not find enough eliminations to keep the Akron Zips involved. So 250-153. A convincing first rotation in my mind was 90% of how that map kind of fared. And, you know, we talked about speed and tempo, and Ohio State dominated that conversation largely from start to finish this first map.
I mean, if you have the opportunity, I mean, this goes in the conversation for all different tiers when it comes down to Call of Duty. Collegiate, challengers, up to the CDL, you will see it happen on all three fronts. That if you have the opportunity to be able to dictate the pace like that on Berlin, again, the blind trust is something that you brought up when we were talking about the rotation from 2 to 3, 1 to 2 in the second set. And when you have players like Round and Vintage that are just able to go on a whim, be able to find themselves on elusive 3 sprees, 4 sprees, getting streaks like that, that blind trust to be able to leave those two players behind, to be able to soak up as much scrap time as possible, while the rotation is also being earned, that even if those two players over by the hard point in previous die, they will end up respawning up closer towards the upcoming hill. And it's just the pace that the Buckeyes were able to set. Nobody, to your point, from Akron were able to meet that tempo coming out from Vintage in Round. And because of that, it really felt like they were truly playing from behind. Small glimpses of hope, obviously, when they were able to work that very slow, methodical break going in towards 4. It really starting to get a solid setup looking in towards 5. Some, myself included, would argue maybe just a little bit too late as they were trying to meet pitter-patter for as far as pace is concerned. It just never really came around for the Zips, man. It was just really unfortunate because, again, we know that this team definitely has what it takes to be able to bring a team like the Buckeyes to the brink when it comes down to a hard point. It just was not existing there on Berlin.
I think when we use the phrase slow and methodical, the thing that has to be reminded is when you play at that play style, every elimination that you take hurts you a lot. So if you're losing 1v1 gunfights a number of different times on a lot of these kind of dictative and clinical setups, you don't get the opportunity to fully execute. And I feel like that was a lot of the reasoning why Akron was unsuccessful on a number of breaks, unsuccessful on a number of rotations. And then even behind that, I would say a couple of different setups got foiled, because if you're going with this slow play style where everyone's responsible for something and you're kind of clearing it out, the problem is if you don't use that 1v1 to actually get any clearance going, then it kind of just feels like you're just kind of suffering and you're kind of stuck in quicksand almost, where, all right, we're just not getting the gunfight wins. Everything's being foiled before we can even get to a full setup for an execute. And that's what it largely felt like that first rotation, thanks to players like Round and Vintage.
Also go back to the conversation about the execute that we saw off the glide bomb from Bio to be able to finally break their way inside of 3. It's also coming down to a certain realization when you have to be able to hit the gas, when you can slowly and steadily work your way for a break versus, okay, we got that one kill in the back, now we need to flood through the front. Don't always have to worry about breaking inside the spawns. It just felt like that the 6th gear was never there for Zips to be able to recognize when they had to pick up the pace, even so slightly. They didn't have to continuously do it, but I mean, once you ended up finding at least one rotational kill, once you ended up taking down, say, Round as they're trying to win a rotational gunfight, then you can end up hitting the gas a little bit. At least one, if not two players would be able to encroach forward and deny a little bit more space. It's never really there. It just felt like that when the Zips finally got themselves inside a hard point, that's all they really wanted. They didn't want to try to deny more space going forward, as if they were almost scared. But that's a hard point done and dusted, Alan. We got ourselves a triple dose of Tuscan if we have to go to that 4.
That much is for sure. For the Tuscan Search and Destroy, and really for the Search and Destroy at all, hey, here's the thing. Both teams not flawless here. So we've seen some vulnerabilities in the past. The thing that you had mentioned when we were sitting at the matchup was this Tuscan Search and Destroy could largely be dictated by what happens off the rip with just set nades. We've seen that a number of different times across all levels of competitive Vanguard with no trophy systems involved. And the biggest thing, and maybe what we need to be looking out for here as an audience at large, is at what point do each team want to spend their utilities to try to get that clearance or confirm those eliminations, if at all? Are you going to use those for retakes, or are you going to use those for initial contests of the bomb? It'll be really interesting, I think, just to see how both teams mentally use things like stuns and nades to try to get the clearance that they're looking for.
I think what's also just as a big old conversation point that a lot of my analysis when it comes down to Search and Destroy honestly comes from the CDL and Challengers, but when it comes down to CCL, you and I know, Alan, look, we've been doing this since Black Ops 4, that a lot of the set strategies don't exactly exist. You know, it's more or less, let's just try to get this quick plant down, and that's what more or less scares me, is that player up top, Church, you just have to hold on to that one nade to be able to deny that quick plant that could potentially come all the way through. But I love to be proved wrong. I'm sure that you do at some point as well by these CCL players. You know, they play a lot of 8s. They definitely have their fair attempt at taking down wagers at the same time. As much is for certain to be able to almost, you know, show us what they have up their sleeve, because now is the go time. I mean, this is the big difference maker when it comes down to the Buckeyes, right? I mean, if you win clean 3-0 here, also solidifying yourself as a Search and Destroy plus a strong and very fast-paced hardpoint team versus the Akron Zips, who are still undefeated inside this pool, by the way. I mean, that says more about the top 25 power rankings, and more or less going back to the point that you brought up earlier, that was, in fact, a fluke 3-0 that they ended up losing going back to the Miami University of Ohio.
A lot to kind of look forward to, though. And we've seen a number of different instances of kind of how to deal with that defensive power position, topside Church. It's like a, you spell it Church, Church. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how things unfold, because, yeah, I think at a certain point we do expect kind of a one-dimensional approach to, you know, lack of a better term, use that. But we'll see, because we've also seen sniper rifles be pulled out. Even though I'm not a huge fan of seeing scopes on this map, they have been influential for certain CDL teams. So if you're feeling a hot hand, wouldn't be surprised if we see that come out to play. But here we go. Loading on into round number 1. That'll be the Buckeyes on the defense first and foremost, with what looks to be a pretty double stack here over towards the outside of A. Frag nade is going to be cooked up, not going to connect, and Bio over the middle of the map has found first blood onto Vintage. So all of a sudden, Ohio State has to pay a lot of respect towards this hit towards A.
One big difference here, you still have Round inside of maps. From that perspective space, again, the Zips, the numbers advantage, going to be able to put that bomb down, and as soon as Round ends up resurfacing themselves through maps, Arxies will take them down. 2v4 for a retake. Good luck.
Difficult one to say the least, especially with Arxies taking away some of this Church area. They know Packin's on the outside, and Arxies was looking to chase down that elimination. And then the final player, Nadi, Well, jumps down from topside church right into the middle of no man's land, and the Akron Zips take a flawless opening out attacking round.
Yeah, and a lot of that, again, comes through that opening break. Again, through the middle of the map is what you're always going to be expecting. And honestly, I got to say, I do really appreciate these changes that Sledgehammer did coming in Valentine's Day. Did you see that little bed of roses over top the S&D side, Alan? So cute. But even still, I think that when you are Akron, again, you need to play that more methodical style. You know, it's going to be a round one strategy, more or less. Players are going to be trying to finesse their way through the middle of the map, even in a post-plant situation. Don't give up the flank too easily. Give yourself the numbers advantage. Deny the map away. Nice clinical round of search and destroy coming from them. As the Buckeyes are trying to set themselves up a lot more focus through the middle of the map. Can't say I'm surprised, but Bio try to take it a little bit of a different route. At least their nade is going to find their own trade.
But Adi is already cleared out mid-map. There will be an opportunity to try to plant, but interestingly enough, Arxes does kind of slip underneath the nose of Vintage, who was initially watching that mid-cut off the rip. So now Packin kind of has to wait for a little bit of help, and that help means Vintage has to essentially solo clear all of this space, and they have no idea where Arxes is. He holds himself in a corner, easy elimination. And it all falls onto the shoulders of one. And there will be no opportunity for a 1v2 here as Akron collapse quickly for their second round.
Go back to the match that we saw last on stream from Akron. This is the Arxes that I was expecting to see on that Berlin hardpoint, but never really had the opportunity nor lived up to it. And now it's fully existing. Again, going back to Tuscan Search and Destroy, when we were framing up the best of 5 between these two teams, you have an opportunity from an SMG standpoint to be able to find a lot of timing in the middle of the map. Arxes is exploiting that through 2 rounds now. When it comes down to Buckeyes, you have to stop that. If not, at least throw a stun through the middle of the map and almost guess at where they're going to be coming from. But the Zips are just aggressive as all get out. Look at this route coming up through top fire. A couple nades coming through. You know that they're going to try to clear mid-map. That's a 4-player unit.
However, there are some Buckeyes here looking to deal with this. First kill good for Adi. And naturally, the threat has been read and established that, okay, they're fully taking up the church. But can you actually trap the Zips in here or not? One Packin falls. They re-wrap back over towards A, and there are no defensive members here anymore, as Ohio State has to make sure there's no full around-the-world setup coming out. And for Round and Vintage, your 2 top fraggers from the respawn, they have a lot of space that they would have to clear out, but a big first blood in the second set of engagements as Vintage does take down the bomb carrier of Storm.
Yep. Nice little angle coming through from top nest to be able to look at the other side of you. And you know, the last bit of information, these last players were inside a church. They're actually double stacked together trying to clear this out, Alan.
Good first kill from Thieves. Round knows, I imagine, that he's gotten the bomb carrier off of Vintage's call. So it's all about timing. There's a nice little 1v1. Round rewrapping. Checking to see if he's going to be chased. Not the case. It's going to be Bio instead. Sticking for the plant. He'll get this out without contest. But will he stick to play for the kill? Sure will. Does not back away towards the fiery monument beyond. And instead is able to catch Round on rotation for their third.
That's a hard guess that they're just going to come right back up top, right? I mean, even from this angle, probably didn't even check it a second time. Wasn't really glued to the minimap like that. But if you check in, you see that that door is still closed. You know that Round is just down there inside of that little courtyard, right? They're just waiting for you to be able to chase for the trade. Obviously doesn't end up coming through 14 seconds of the round. You want to extend that bad boy up to 45 seconds by planting the bomb. They start to do for Bio. The entire idea for Zips in that opening engagement was try to at least get the bait and switch engagement for Arxes to be able to get streaks. Obviously, it doesn't play out, but now Buckeyes very aggressively trying to work their way towards the middle of the map. Bio's got a boomstick. Missed just on the outside.
Oh, Round has to be careful here. Forward pressure from the Buckeyes, but that's the bomb carrier that was initially trying to sniff things out through mid. Vintage has been read over the top of the L-turn here. So Bio will just wait for this inevitable peak, you would feel like, but with pressure still mounting down low, he's going to go to the rat and instead try to challenge this corner. Yeah, what indeed. Very surprising challenge, and that allows Round not just first blood, but a chance to try to plant. But a next contest off the defense of the Zips has actually pulled him off. And that may give an opportunity to Storm as he takes the first round once again. Not going to hold for the plant, and that will mean a 2v1 will now unfold, favoring the Zips defense.
And they know where Vintage is, too. That stun is going to confirm it. They're back on this side, going up towards top fire. Probably not all of that information in the world, but you are confirming that they are on the backside of this play. Vintage has to clutch it. 20 seconds remaining, and they're trying to resurface through the middle of the map, but they have no information where these other players are located at, Alan. They put themselves all the way on the back. So many corners that they have to check going forward, and Thieves, they got the information. They know what it has to do, and that's communicated to RCs, who, again, got aggressive through the middle of the map in the middle of that round, just collecting off of it. I mean, say what you will. I mean, a very interesting decision by Bio, the Card 98K player. Defensively, he drops down from Church, says, I'm going to hit this with the rat. And albeit the pistol is good, you know as well as I do, this ends up getting absolutely dropped in the front foyer. But off the information alone, resurfacing on the other side of the ruins, Arceus is able to find themselves some great timing. Thieves clearing out the middle of the map was all the confirmation that they needed going forward for Zips to take 4 in a row.
And I'm not going to lie. Using one of your top slayers in round as your bomb carrier is a very interesting decision. As Bio once again mid-map gets a first blood. Vintage has not been good on either side of the bomb through the middle of the map yet. So with that numbers advantage, Bio will get the plant. And now it's down to how does Ohio State retake. Round has actually gotten himself a blessed piece of timing here up through the middle of the map and around the back of this post-plant setup. Should be a free first kill on a Bio, sure is. And also able to tally up one of his own. And as Arceus confirms one trade, it's going to be all Ohio State hitting from the tree side. Now down to Arceus for 1v2, but cannot get to safety as Packin finds their double. And with that, Ohio State on the board.
I found it very, very interesting. I don't remember who it was. I don't think it really matters. One offensive player, when the plant was going down there for the Zips, they were over by the rooftops, Alan. And instead of putting themselves up in top fire, the God contest spot when it comes down, or the God clutch spot, I should say, ends up going all the way back towards P3 instead of trying to put themselves up through that fire alleyway. And by that little piece of blessing timing that you were talking about, that's exactly where round surfaced themselves out from top maps. They just flew all the way over towards Vines, and then they got that first free engagement and ended up smoking the second over top the monument as well. What we saw from round continuously, at least with the Berlin hardpoint, can they continue it here? Stuns to the middle of the map. But again, they are the aggressive player here with the bomb. We'll go 1 for 1 in the center at the very least. No numbers advantage to speak of until Packin takes down Bio.
And it's really interesting to see Ohio State as they clean up the other kills just very quickly. They're not holding off from trying to get this mid-aggressive play going. And, you know, I can at least respect the idea of just keep the Zips on the back foot a little bit. But, man, it almost feels like at a certain point we're starting to get closer and closer towards the definition of insanity. However, the thing about it is that time much more successful. And I'll be curious to see what Akron wants to do next time they get over to the defense. But for now, we consider what they want to do on this next offensive round. Still searching for 5 are the Zips. And their offense has been pretty darn successful for them up until recently, obviously. So it's going to be on to what do we bring to the table this time. Bio is playing the long-range angle over the Monument. Storm kind of pushing forward as the bomb carrier. And once again, Ohio State gets aggressive through mid, going with 1-for-1 trade.
Arceus is going to clean things up on the Adi. And that's that player inside of the church. Get some timing to be able to take down Vintage. Now it's all up to Packin. Bio's going to be holding this angle with the sniper. They have the information. Arceus is on 2. Going to try to probably feed them, maybe get closer to streaks. Doesn't even matter. Zips have the numbers advantage. Just completely collapse on top of it. That's a tried and true strategy when it comes down to Tuscan, right? I mean, you just have players that are just so aggressive, just so able to be able to clear out the middle of the map. You get Arceus inside a church. They end up finding 2 within the round. I mean, from there on out, those defensive players just have to be able to resurface themselves and be able to clean up kills just as fast as they lost their numbers. It just does not come out to be for Buckeyes. I mean, I will say this much about Zips. You're very right to call out that their offensive rounds are definitely the more favored. They are decisive. I mean, when they're committed towards a play, they are committed, and Arceus is just executing all the way through. 9-3 for the kid.
Once again now, Vintage mid-map. That's the first 1v1 he's been able to find versus Bio. I hesitate to even call it a 1v1 because he just took an off angle. So bomb planted for round. Adi there to be sure that Storm gets traded. And now the Zips have kind of a weird situation to deal with. You have Vintage up top that needs to be dealt with. Arceus is able to do that very quickly. Immediately upon asking, he provides. The problem is, Round had snuck through Church and took down Thieves, leaving Arceus for a 1v2. No idea where Round has gone off to, and Adi has peeled away from this post plant. And as Arceus gets tagged up, well, of course, now Ohio State a massive advantage as they know exactly where this last defensive player is, and there is no longer going to be any time for Arceus to make a play. So he'll just hold the 3-man streak that he's been able to tally, 10-3 overall. It would be a stretch to think about streaks, but hey, tool's a tool at the end of the day.
And there it goes. That's what I thought. I mean, no real reason to just try. You already cleared out all the church. Just lay on your belly. At least wait. Maybe you can find 2 in the early goings of the next round, especially because it's going to be offense. So they challenge out. Adi's going to take them down. So Yeah, this really feels like who's going to find more pressure and who's going to fly faster to the middle of the map in between Round and Arxes at this current moment. 10-4 for Arxes. Rounds up to finally 6-5 off of their slow start that we started seeing from the Buckeyes. Still a lot more work needs to be done. Going to come through with a defensive round. Looking like a pretty standardized setup. Packen was almost playing around with the idea that they wanted to go down towards maps, but Akron Zips are going back to what ended up working. Bio's going to have an SMG, could not choose which player to lock on to. Vintage will take them down for first blood.
I won't lie, don't be surprised if Ohio State find ways to bring this back to more level field, because their play style, if they can find the eliminations, it puts a lot of pressure on the Zips numbers-wise, and of course with that also map positionally, but we continue to get trades in the kill feed, leading to a 2v2, 60 seconds on the clock, as Arxes decides to clear out a little bit more space over towards the command center. That may allow an opportunity for Thieves to rotate long over towards the B side, and that is indeed the case. Packen was nearby, but is not able to see this rotation, but Round will sniff this out as he gets caught through mid-courtyard, gets a read on where Arxes is positioned, and all of a sudden, this bomb plan is anything but safe.
Oh, Thieves has the read, though. He's going to find Packen to the back. Now it's all up to Round 1v2 to stay alive in the search and destroy, and this is a great call coming through from Arxes and Thieves. You had Round bottom maps. Try to rotate back over towards A, but time is the consideration.
On Round, as he gets this 1v1, he may put the clock as his biggest ally, but does not go to finish off the elimination versus Thieves. Instead, just denies, moves back, and says, you have to plan. Problem is, he's only got 17 bullets left, cooking up a nade. Gets it off. Does it find the kill? No, only a tag. The bomb will be stuck for the plant, and it does get down successfully. So now Round, a much more difficult 1v2. Re-wraps over the backside of Monument. Stray shot comes out, so the Zips will absolutely know where he's positioned, and that will be the end. Oh, man, you almost feel like Round, once you get those first couple of shots into Thieves, you should go, find the kill. But, of course, he's nervous that the second teammate is close behind and tries to play with the clock, and that decision in the end leads to a 6th round for the Zips.
Yeah, I think it was the right call from Round. I mean, if you couldn't confirm the kill, you knew that they were going to be lying on their belly. And a 1v2, right, a testament as old as time when it comes down to search and destroy in Call of Duty. For Arxes and Thieves, obviously to stack up on top of each other. Worst comes to worst, they find the trade. One can end up planting the bomb. If Round ends up getting away with their life, at least you find some damage. At least the bomb still goes down regardless. But for Round to be able to hold their life for that long, to not even get traded out or considered, I think that you could definitely tip your hat towards Round to at least making the right play. But the nade, definitely going to lose some sleep over that. Could not cook it up to a fine medium rare Gordon Ramsay special to be able to find that kill on the bomb planter. Ended up ricocheting off that wall, and I think went on the other side of the S&D site itself. So I think, again, what you're looking at when it comes down to Zips, as far as search and destroy is concerned, is that they were committed. And when they came down to the executions of those bomb executes going over towards A, it just came through with a lot of middle of the map pressure that we finally got to see Arxes come into their own with the SMG. You and I know that the SMGs are feeling right at home there on the Tuscan streets. It comes through beautifully for Arxes with the amount of pressure that they found.
Yeah, good stuff through and through. It leads us to a 1-1 map count as we head off to our break, and then we come back to look at the map set once again to see where exactly we head as we consider the control. Be right back.
Stick there. What?
Round 11 affair going on over on Bravo. If you want to check out the rest of that match between Wisconsin and South Dakota, you can find it on TV out on Bravo. But here we've got Battle of Ohio, and well, in old Ohio, there is a team that's known throughout the land, the Ohio State Buckeyes, that started off extremely hot with a win hardpoint, but were immediately put to shame on the Tuscan search destroyed by the Akron Zips. We're level at 1. We've got 2 more maps Tuscan that we now confirm we'll be getting through before we potentially see a map 5 Berlin again.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that it's one of those things that when we were talking about this Berlin hardpoint, it was the Round and Vintage show. They were able to dictate the pace continuously, and then we went to the Tuscan Search and Destroy. Then we finally got to see what Arxes was almost holding back. You almost feel like that the hardpoint was a warm-up for Arxes to be able to finally find their strides and be able to cut down the middle of the map just as quick as possible. It's just been some fantastic stuff coming through from the Zips as decisive that they were able to put themselves in favor for that Tuscan Search and Destroy. But as Alan said, going to be going in towards at least a full-on triple dose of this Tuscan going through the control and then the hard point. But still need to be able to put ourselves in a situation for the Buckeyes to be able to, again, fully showcase that it was a fluke against that loss when it comes down to the Miami University of Ohio losing at 0-3. Again, those first 2 maps were pretty darn close, Alan. Again, losing 243-250, around 11 in the search and destroy, but What raises a lot of considerations where the Zips might be able to take an advantage in this swing map is here on the control, as the Buckeyes did end up losing that to Miami University of Ohio 1-3.
Indeed. Sorry about that. Don't know what was going on. Something with...
Apparently you sounded like you were underwater.
All right, well.
Watch back.
Really. All I care about, really.
Yeah.
With that, let's get control. Let's go. You ready? I don't know if we're ready. I don't have anything else to add besides what you just said. You said all the right things. So, I'm ready.
I'm just excited to see more SMG presence. You know, when it comes down to like I want to say like the upper leg for that Berlin hardpoint. I mean, we got to see Vintage just going balls to the walls with the automaton. Here on Tuscan Control, you're gonna get a lot more dicey in the middle of the map, a lot more opportunities for SMGs, and as much as I appreciate the gas is saying everything right, man. Hey, man, this is what all of those hours is spent, at least through the early goings of Call of Duty Vanguard will get me. At least a small bit of understanding what might end up happening throughout the entirety of this best of 5, and especially here on Tuscan. A lot of SMG presence, triple SMG at times. Hell, you can even pull out the Toronto Ultra strategy that if you end up getting that A zone, which you should secure to be able to get yourself that extra 60 seconds, to pull out that quad SMG and just quite literally overwhelm your opponent's therapy.
The biggest thing is we need Akron to start trading better. That was evident when it largely came down to when it mattered the most throughout Berlin. So that needs to be there, I would say, especially for the defensive side. And it needs to be, at least in some way, more considerable in any form than we saw during Berlin, because otherwise, if it goes to be an all-defensive affair and you're not trading efficiently, you will probably have to end up on that round 5 offense. We load on in. Be interested to see who starts from which side first. And as you'd mentioned, what kind of planning has been done? Because for both of these two teams, well, really for every single school so far in the CCL, there has not been a lot of time on control, at least not compared to challengers in the CDL, but it is no longer a valuable or viable excuse. You've had it for now 3 weeks, so the lab better have been open and more than just on campus. We'll say that much.
Better hope that you're playing a lot of it in 8s. I mean, the CCL court is always popping with a lot of these collegiate athletes just playing a lot of Call of Duty late at night, early morning. Hopefully they're done with their homework before they end up picking up the sticks, but hey, I'm not their fathers, so I'm just here to cast over their games. I think that you have to be able to take a look at control and really dive deep to what you just said. It's inexcusable as we're going in towards the second stage. You cannot allow control to be a fumble of a game mode. It has to be a strength, and you can almost, again, rely on some of these first engagements. Bio's going to almost have a little bit of a late engagement. Had a real good look at Vintage the first time through the window up top. Church will end up taking them down as Akron through the offense. Had a lot of early goings as far as this ace zone control is concerned.
It's actually a really big kill from Thieves to keep the middle of the map clear. Also able to kind of pre-fire down the second contestant. So Ohio State will essentially have to forfeit that A zone without really ever really contesting it. Not great overall as far as the time is concerned for the defense of Ohio State, but the numbers and lives still stay relatively even. Nice pickup here from Bio, and also Packin gets caught playing aggressively through patio. So now the only defensive member for the Buckeyes is going to be number 6 in Adi. And as he finds one elimination, not going to find anything more behind that, and it's fortunately Round who's there to pick up the pieces and at least provide some sort of perimeter here for Buckeyes around B.
It's so hard to be able to recognize when you're trying to go for this B execute for the zone, right? And like how many numbers advantages you have, how quickly you're going to be able to read for them to coming through them, that radio hallway, if you will, and Storm now is putting themselves in an opportune moment to be able to lock things down. But again, as much as what you were saying, coming in towards this comparatively to the Berlin hardpoint, Akron just need to be able to find better trades, cannot allow Round Packin to be able to combine for 2, because by that point, you're just waiting for the respawns to come back through the middle of the map.
Storm's on 4, potential to play for streaks, but gets caught as Round had still been holding over towards Command Center. Now Adi in the back going to be tested, and my goodness, Orxys absolutely destroys him. So Vintage has to come back, try to deal with this onslaught of Zips members, but as he holds, maybe looking for one elimination, it's Phoebes who finds the kill around the backside. For Ohio State, nice eliminations through the middle of the map will at least provide some clearance, and even more importantly, have an avenue for the defense to come off rotation, as you've got Bio, who's actually blocking spawns here for Akron. But unfortunately, that means there are limited numbers for the Zips forward, and with that, Ohio State will eventually re-control their spawn.
I mean, Bio was at the right position, right, to be able to block those spawns, to be able to almost mitigate the damage coming through from the front. You will navigate the Buckeyes to almost hit in one place at one time. It's going to come through the alleyway. Blind Trust has to be there, that the success of the engagement comes through from maps to be able to get in towards the B zone. Triple challenge won't be able to take down Vintage up top, as all of the Zips are more or less just having a keen focus and stacking on the backside of Church. Just have to win the gunfights and be able to get themselves in a favorable position to finally get themselves numbers to stop this clock.
It's not going to happen, is it?
No.
Kills for Ohio State clean. Really after the concession of the A zone. everything started to light up in favor of the Buckeyes, and with 5 seconds on the clock and a still very sturdy perimeter around the front of the hard point, it does not look very possible for anyone for the Zips to touch, and that will be the case. So a quick take initially, left about 2 minutes and 12 seconds for Akron to do something with the B zone, and they walk away really with not many favorable trades, nor even a single tick of progress on this B zone whatsoever.
And when it comes down to especially control here on Tuscan, it's almost like a gimme, like that you'll probably see that A zone be converted for the offense more often than not. You know, the way that the Buckeyes were trying to come out from the defense, they put a lot of focus over towards the middle of the map, came up flat. You know, with that one kill that you ended up having from Bio to open up the top side of Church, and then Fees being able to find that space provided, as you said, able to get that extra 60 seconds. But still a tussle and a struggle for some teams to be able to convert over towards that B zone. Some have been able to crack the code, and Round might be that player that can find a lot of pressure in towards the back early. Finds Bio up top, and is starting to zone away in the backside of Church. Would have been a big one to take down Bio in the back, but off the respawn, they will able to hold strong and be able to at least hold the numbers to keep the Buckeyes away from converting this A zone early.
Yeah, I was about to say, as good as the eliminations are for Round, it's almost too greedy to where you're playing for so many eliminations through the Church that you never come back to help your teammates get onto the A point. So it's under 60 seconds before Ohio State can actually see and step onto the A zone. Bio in a little bit of trouble. Arxie's looking to assist. And that will mean a pinstripe kill feed as trades will be even. First tick of progress looks pretty imminent as Packin is still holding for it, and it will be confirmed before Arxie's can touch. Already it's Thieves who comes to touch. And with the elimination, it's only the first tick of progress that gets locked in. Now Thieves off the flank. Gets a good read here onto Round. Should be a free kill, but unfortunately does not convert on it before Round can get around the corner. So Thieves on 3 now all of a sudden has to kind of play to zone off more Ohio State spawns. The second tick of progress comes in, and the rest of Akron kind of finds themselves in a position where they need help from their teammate from behind. And well, it will be Bio who eventually comes through for the double to make sure that third tick of progress gets halted.
40 seconds now remaining. You just need one tick of progress if you are the Buckeyes, but you take a look at all the different win conditions that you have for control, Alan. It's 30 seconds. That's the win condition for the Zips. You can also take a look at the lives. They are up by a whole handful, 19v14, 26 seconds remaining. The Buckeyes need to make this offense stick to be able to get this A zone.
And they're just not focused on it. We saw one solo play from Round looking to maybe open up space over towards B. Eventually, they do get numbers here, but you need to get kills, 15v13. Even if you get the extra 60 seconds, it may not amount to too much. Round will commit the streak, and I know that you're considering is there value actually in that as we get the lives to 13 playing up against 12 with a minute 13 of the clock for Ohio State having to capture a full B zone.
I don't hate it. Didn't necessarily love it. You're not going to get a whole lot more position. I mean, you're guaranteeing the 60 seconds, and at least you're mitigating the lives deficit that was 9, now just down to 2, 13v11, as they try to assault this B zone. You still have Adi on the backside of Church, again, zoning away a lot of the Zips members. It's going to flood them through inside of the column, but Arxie's Storm, those two players, are able to combine for those 2 kills. Now Adi has to make a play through the patio.
Well, 9v8, if you can stall this clock and continue to find sufficient trades, you could win this offense on kills alone. But Bio, Arxie's clear off the pressure in and around the B zone. Fee's looking to track down Packin through the Church, but not going to be able to. So now 7v7, 33 seconds onto the clock. And as Bio finds one, he gets traded by Packin, who should be playing to stall the clock here. The rest of his teammates are a million miles away. And as he finally makes his turn to go over here to stop the clock, there are Zips members nearby that are looking to contest him. 1v1, Packin able to take that. 18 seconds now on the clock. It's a 5v5. But Packin has to exist on this point for as long as humanly possible, and he will not be allowed to. Full flank from Ohio State around the back is sufficient for a couple of kills, but a 4v3, and with not a lot of time, it's just down to the last 2 Buckeye members, and you feel pretty dire about their chances unless Vintage can do something here, and he's not going to be able to.
And Adi's just nowhere near to be able to make a continuous play happen yet. You're frustrated in the call is absolutely right. And again, when it comes down to control, again, there's a lot to learn and a lot to understand when you are that last player alive. You have to consider a lot of different situations that you want to be able to make the heads-up play. You and I both know that half wall is probably the second, if not the best head glitch that we have in Vanguard right now, to be able to zone away players in towards the back, and then to be able to have that blind trust from the Buckeyes as they were respawning over towards Vines, to be able to then work their way potentially through maps, but the time was just not on their side. They had to be able to finesse and stop that clock for the reinforcements to come all the way through. Just tough to be able to say the least. But again, mitigating the lives, that's going to be pretty massive going forward as Akron Zips off that defensive round win. It's actually making such a heads-up play. I love this call. 4 players deep, not even losing a single one, coming to stack the B zone early.
The thing about it is Round is on the backside of this play. There is an opportunity for him to pinch, get a bit of high ground control. But a first tick of progress has already come through for Akron. And as the Zips start to recognize that their attempt, maybe capitalize on more, has kind of gone astray, the focus off spawn goes right back over towards the A zone. So kind of a battle on two fronts, most of it being won so far by the Zips, and they're not done actually for B. They're actually just walking right past the A zone, looking to make a play back over through Church, and the kills are starting to suffice. Maybe an opportunity here. That is until Adi gets a double, and now the Zips will have to either try to play rogue for a couple of kills, or just kind of tuck tail and go back over to A. Thieves, at what point are you going to pull the trigger here, brother? Goodness gracious, thought for a second Adi was going to get the turn on him. But it does keep at least an opportunity for a play towards B to still exist.
Oh, big kills again coming through for the Zips to be able to get on towards this B zone, stop that clock. They got that first tick going over towards A. Is a double-edged play coming through from the Zips. You got Bio over towards A, finessing their life. They're going to be in an off-screen engagement versus round, but Arxes is on that half wall, in towards the back, is able to find themselves yet another, while they're going to have Thieves going to almost fully capture this B zone. And if you're the Buckeyes, you have to concede this going forward. It's 24v17, and you got to put all of your stocks into keeping this A zone in your favor.
And not just the A zone, you need mid-map control convincingly so. You cannot just allow Akron to full flood in towards this A zone from multiple points. Bio in a little bit of trouble. Weasels his way back towards cover, and that will be good for the elimination from Arxes and the second tick of progress. 20 playing up against 14. Long flank coming out from round. Arxes should read this, but does not get the gun up in time, so with that pinch from Vintage, kills will go back the way of the Buckeyes, and they will hold for now.
Now, but 2 ticks of progress, Alan. You just need one wave of kills, and you're going to force all the Buckeyes to spawn in the back. And speaking of being in the back, Bio's actually on the flank, knowing that the Buckeyes have to put, again, all of their reservations in towards the A zone, but Round comes back alive on a 4, 24 and 14 for the Buckeyes player. Completely keep the Zips on their back heels, and now they know that there's potentially a play in the back, and that's exactly where the Zips are looking. Mid-map coverage first, trying to get the backside of Church, try to catch the Buckeyes by surprise.
The thing is, you can keep trying to play to feast off of these spawn kills if you're Akron. Get the lives more marginalized. Round in the back. He's obviously made himself aware as he fires a couple of stray shots, and Akron will just use those straight kills to completely cut off the reinforcements, deal with Round, and then stack for that third tick of progress. Akron taking the first offensive round, go up 2-1.
Sufficient trades and sufficient opening break, too. I mean, we saw maybe a 4-for-1 as far as the opening 5 kills went in Akron's favor to be able to get on that B zone. And at that point, when I saw the first tick of progress come through, I was like, okay, job well done. You know, you're able to then go back towards the middle of the map and over towards A. But Bio stayed alive on this back Church for such a damn long time. It opened up ample opportunities for the Zips to be able to continuously throw numbers at it. Again, those numbers were always in their favor going forward. Now, again, the pressure on the Buckeyes. They have to win this offensive round. They have to win it convincingly if they want to get defense on a round number 5. But no kills to speak of, Bile. That's a bullet hose. Got to reload it sooner rather than later. But still, look at the lives, Alan. It is 30v24. The Zips can do no wrong.
Yeah, there's just no eliminations for anybody besides Round, who's 24 and 17. You've got Packet and Adi struggling to get things going. Vintage not having the same kind of influence that he had in either of the last 2 maps since the Berlin hardpoint. And as Ohio State will get a couple of kills, it does give them some pressure towards the B zone. First tick of progress is going to be good here. And with this forward pressure, it's actually going to force Akron to call out a streak to try to get them off this B point. So that'd be good for not just the relinquishment of the B zone, but also 4 straight kills, and that second tick of progress will be depleted.
They've only lost 3 lives on this defense, Alan. 26v19 now. The Buckeyes, they got to go. I mean, 45 seconds. You need this extra 60 seconds to be able to convert any sort of advantage. 2 kills come through. No one's watching the flank. Thieves comes from behind, finds 2. Gets the read on the third, had a good look at Packin, but they will get traded out as RCs tries to find a little bit of a challenge on the east side of the ruins. Are all just throwing away their lives. That life lead is now kind of just diminishing down to about 6 or so. Zips really got to be careful with what they're doing here.
Yeah, once that flank gets read and dealt with, you kind of have to give this up, but streak will be called. Bio's able to get a double, so it does kind of kill off some more time from the clock. Round around the back, also going to be denied. So Storm, who held his ground on top of the zone, has fully depleted the third tick of progress, and maybe we called it a touch too soon. By we, I mean I. Because now you've got an opportunity where Akron could just win this map off the defense alone. It's a long flight from Arxes, number 1 in blue, around the back. Make sure that nobody can finish off this third tick of progress. And with 22 seconds, it's desperate plays from Ohio State, including 1 straight member towards B, and the kill feed tells the tale. 6 straight eliminations for Akron. And with 15 seconds on the clock and more streaks to exist through, it's looking good for the Zips, whether by the clock or by the lives. 20 playing up against 5, 10 seconds on the clock. And it feels like, well, hard to say which more convenient, the killing the clock or killing the lives. Either's a good option right here, as Akron will surely go 3-1.
Well, Brown's going to try to make an argument for it, but no respawns remaining again. It is Packin, Round, and Vintage versus the world. All of Zips, the entire university, running at them going forward. Got to be able to convert something, and even if you get this extra 60 seconds, I mean, what then? It's 17v2. I mean, this would be almost like playing zombies at this point. The Buckeyes, just relentlessly trying to play off of Round's flanks.
Yeah.
And when you are trying to play off of something like that, Alan, you have to assume that another player, those 3 players that are not Round, are going to be able to at least go find a trade, 2 for 1, at the very least. You cannot allow the Zips to just walk over you like that when Round is causing so much distress in the back. If Round is going to be that player that's going to constantly try to mitigate damage by way of a flank, you have to be able to have at least one player. It was Vintage on the Berlin hardpoint, was non-benefactor coming in towards this this Tuscan control. Again, it brings up to the point that I talked about. When it comes down to Berlin, a lot more longer ranges of sights, a lot more avenues for an automaton to be able to lock things down and catch a lot of players in that medium range engagement. But coming in towards Tuscan, the avenues, the timings from an MP40 standpoint, especially from Thieves and RCs, was just at an all-time high. Again, the Zips could do no wrong when it came down to those last 2 rounds of control.
Really, these 3 maps have been ugly from the loser's perspective. Honestly speaking, like the Berlin hardpoint was really sloppy from Akron, really clean from Ohio State. The search and destroy, you could say the opposite, where Ohio State was just kind of throwing themselves to the middle of the map, and Akron said, all right, you're going to keep trying this. Fair enough for us. And then kind of the same thing here on the Tuscan control. It just looked like the Buckeyes wanted to turn that into a TDM, but the problem was no one was finding kills besides Round. It's not clean, I'll say that much. But for Akron's standpoint, hey, you're able to essentially pick apart the mistakes and the flaws and turn it into easy success from you. I will say, credit where credit is due. A couple of really well-timed plays off the pinch for Akron to make life even more difficult for the Buckeyes. And it's kind of one of those situations where even if Round is finding value, you kind of sit there and say, well, go ahead. You know, we'll just kind of, you can kill one player every so often when we kill the rest of your 3 players getting out of spawn. And it worked out for them. But yeah, not great news there for Ohio State and the control, and that leads us to a map 4 Tuscan hardpoint, which could be the end of Ohio State if they don't find a way to kind of reprise their hardpoint efficiency that they had in map 1.
It really could be. One player that certainly heated up, especially through that Tuscan search and destroy and the control, was the player that I highlighted first and foremost hopping in towards this matchup, and that's Bio. Again, the flex player when it comes down to the Akron Zips has been absolutely flourishing when it comes down to what they can find. We saw with the Car 98K, we saw with the Automaton, and at times we also saw with the MP40. They can really do it all when it comes down to those 3 different weapons. It's just something that didn't end up finding themselves on that Berlin hardpoint out, and I'm more or less scared when it comes down to the Buckeyes here on the Tuscan hardpoint, because it's not going to be the same when you're considering the rotations from 1 to 2 even, or even from 2 to 3 on the Berlin hardpoint. It's not as clear cut as it is for Berlin. When it comes down to the rotations, especially from 2 to 3, you have a long way to go, and that gets extended all more when you're thinking about the different alleyways, the different angles that all these different Zips members can just be lurking at. Because, again, that's their playstyle. We saw that to their own fault on the Berlin hardpoint, that they were playing slow. They were waiting for the engagements to come all the way through. They were getting snuffed out. A lot more timings were almost being found. For the Buckeyes, you're probably not going to be able to have that same opportunity as we ended up seeing offensively from Buckeyes, almost just exclusively waiting for Round to be able to make those plays. I mean, they were getting ratted out by tons of different players on so many different avenues when they were attempting to make those plays happen, and I can almost assume the same might happen here on the Tuscan hardpoint.
Yeah, it almost feels, and I hate to use this on broadcast, but it does feel like the Zips have just kind of warmed up. They're not losing as many gunfights as we had seen during the Berlin hardpoint. That was kind of the big, cataclysmic mistake that we saw from Akron in that slow, methodical playstyle, was that they were not winning gunfights. That has not been the case over the course of the last 2 maps. So I hate using that term because I think it's a false one, but largely speaking, it does feel like Akron is starting to match up in those gunfights much, much better, save maybe when Round makes kind of a special moment happen. But you can't exist off of hero plays like that for map wins on strategic modes like Search and Destroy and Control. However, that said, if you let Round run loose on Tuscan hardpoint, I could potentially see a world where Ohio State could take this map just based off of his ability to single-handedly turn a rotation over. So I kind of hope that we see corrections here from Akron's side of things, and I'll say kind of the same thing for Ohio State. show me what you put together in map number 1, because from the loser's perspective, I stand by what I said, that this has been a really sloppy affair for these 3 maps. And not what you expect for 2 teams at the top of their pool.
No, especially not, right? I mean, considering what the different odds are, right? I mean, you have the Akron Zips, who were able to beat University of Miami of Ohio 3-0, but, you know, in a very tight affair. And then you also, or 3-1, I should say, excuse me. And then you also have the Buckeyes, who are trying to redeem themselves after losing to that same school, Miami University of Ohio, 3-0, to be able to correct themselves. If this is their play style going forward, it's going to be a long stage shoot from them when they're going to be playing other teams of like ability coming in from a lot of the other different pools going forward. I think that the game plan needs to be able to change itself ever so when it comes down to the Buckeyes, and it needs to almost replicate what we did see on the Berlin. What was their greatest success going forward when it came down to the Buckeyes on that Berlin hardpoint? Yes, a lot of it was round, being able to go AWOL, finding a lot of rotational kills. Vintage setting up at the back to be able to cut down the rotations from Akron when they were putting themselves in positions. But what the Buckeyes were able to do so wonderfully on that Berlin hardpoint is playing off the kills, being able to then take the space and deny it away from Akron Zips. But again, it comes down to, you know, the statement. I would hate to say it as well, but who would have thought that winning gunfights in a game like Call of Duty could actually garner yourself a map win? That's exactly what could be the catalyst to be able to deny space and then take it away from the enemy team as well. That could be the Akron Zips turning point when it came down to that search and destroy, finally getting the gunnies won.
Yeah, quite the case. You know, we talked a lot about Miami of Ohio. They currently find themselves at 6-1 with a schedule in front of them that will likely see them win out from here on out, I would have to imagine. From the other perspective, though, also Bowling Green State is still kind of in the mix. Those are kind of your top 4 in this Pool D of the Midwestern region. And the top 3, I believe, will make their way into Stage 2 at the very top. And well, I'll say this much. Putting yourself in a second stage where the competition is fiercer than what you found here in what is largely an Ohio group definitely give you a lot of experience leading up to playoffs. So for one of those 4 aforementioned squads, it's going to feel a little bit bad to miss out on the top because you feel like they're probably going to farm up that second tier between this region. So a lot on the line here. Ohio State loses, it makes things a lot more interesting. But we'll see. Still have to get through map number 4. It'll be Akron from the quote-unquote and mostly affirmed positive side here of P1, but good pressure from Ohio State mid-map with these opening nades means that Bio has to provide, and boy will he. A double through the middle of the map means that Akron will open up this first hard point without really any cause for concern.
This feels like the opening rip of the search and destroy, doesn't it? Now, you got Bio through the middle of the map. They reach 2 players to be able to try to influence themselves from Buckeyes. They get cut down, but they resurface themselves wonderfully. They're starting off with the favorite side. Sure, we're Zips to be able to take a look at P1, but if the Buckeyes can at least hold on the backside of the church, at least keep P1 contested and scrappy, getting a couple of contested times, maybe a few seconds themselves, trying to hold the rotation going over towards 2. That's a money hill when it comes down to the first set.
Nice break attempt here from Ohio State, though, in the scrap time will put us just to about an even game, if not just a slight Buckeye lead. 2 players, though, of Akron make their way through patio. Odd, you going to recognize this. Only needs to find one, as Vintage had in the same breath collected the second. So spawn locations look pretty solid, although there is a threat of Arxie started to lurk here for the Zips through mid-map, just kind of holding through this church alley. Problem is, a lot of his teammates are not finding the kills needed to fully block nor flip those spawns, and as Round comes off of his respawn, he will now make a bit of a mess through the church, meaning the Zips have to respond, and they will. 3 for 1 goes the exchange, and Akron could step foot onto this hard point, and they do.
Oh, they know they didn't break the spawns either. That's a great position coming through from Arxie to be able to cut down players as they try to resurface themselves, but a lot of blind trust has to come through from Storm, and well, they will provide, being able to find themselves those 2 kills, and able to get a nice little return descender there on packing a clean feed from Zips to completely reset the tempo going inside of 2. Again, because of Arxie's previous position, they did not break up the spawn, so they are going to be in an off-screen engagement, would be a big rotational kill, and I say that because on-screen Thieves is also trying to influence themselves going in towards Fountain. The Zips from 2 to 3 looking pretty darn strong.
Decent chase down from Thieves, but is not equal to the task that was provided by Audi, and with that, Ohio State will kind of just take their loss of the second hardpoint on the chin and get a full 4-man rotation, mostly blessed off of the squad spawns by rooftops to get the third opened up to their name. Vintage, first blood through mid-map, as the Zips are looking to hit from multiple points of entry. The only one of success so far is the play from Bio over through the archway. still needing to find some success as this playoff screen over through rooftops. And, well, as Packin comes off spawn, he will make sure that the trades are sufficient for Ohio State. And that means that now for the Zips, only one choice in the last 25 seconds to break, and that's from the top side of the minimap, which is being watched by Vintage, who's on 3.
The hardest hill to break when it comes down to Tuscan. It is the hardest hill to break when you got players that are just zoning away the rooftops. You got players reading the hit coming through from the vines, and that's going to send all of the Zips going to the backside of the church. But Round is also trying to make an influential rotational play. It will be cut down by Bio. Would have been a massive one to find. Same could be said for Packin, but going in towards 4, it seems that we're just giving big old firm handshakes when it comes down to 2 to 3. Okay, you find 40 seconds here, you find 40 seconds over here. There'll be a slight lead for the Buckeyes going in towards 4, but the thing about 4, Allen, here inside the church, you got to keep your head on a swivel. You never know which door the MP40s are going to enter themselves in, as Buckeyes do a great job breaking in early for the initial time.
And all that rotation is just individual gunfights that were won by Ohio State. But now off the respawn, Akron does the exact same thing in response to the Buckeyes. 4 straight eliminations, 4 in a row for Bio, as now Arxes works through the middle of the map, trying to cut off where exactly this next and final hit for the Buckeyes will be. It should be up top. Storm very aware of that. Shuts the door on the play. Arxes a part of this equation, but does not provide any success. And can somebody get a trade? That is 4-man feeds on either side. Ohio State break on their first attempt. Akron retake on their first attempt. And then Ohio State say, we'll just re-break again. We need to see a solid hold.
Yeah, you have one point or the other, right? I mean, the only solid hold that we saw was the 50 that we saw from P3 out of Buckeyes. But one thing that also can't go unnoticed are big old breadwinner when it comes down to the Buckeyes, Allen, of Round. He's 2-12 right now. This is actually a lot of value that Vintage is starting to find for themselves. Packin's also stepping up. It was the overall objective holder when it came down to Berlin Hardpoint, is doing a great job trying to keep themselves initialized. Big old frag grenade, 1 for 1. Again, when it comes down towards this hill, get used to it. Gonna get a lot of fragmentation grenades coming in, as Bio won't be able to read Round jumping in towards the stairwell. 30 seconds still left to play here in P5. You know the Zips are going to try to hit it one more time, but Vintage locks down 2 more. That should send all of the Zips packing over towards the spawn and trying to set themselves up for another rotation.
Well, they could put a couple of members who are spawning through the rooftops to maybe try to finesse for some of the scrap time. And with these eliminations, that does indeed seem to be the case. Vintage in the corner dealt with. So the back 12 seconds will largely be conceded here from the Buckeyes, giving this away to Akron. Although Round does kind of want to hit it one more time, so turns to an 81-121 score. 40-point differential favoring Ohio State, but with the kind of stretched thin defense, once again, they're allowing an opportunity for Akron to get a pretty good look towards this first hardpoint as it opens up a monument.
They're also getting a pretty good look at from Top Church, and what do you get from Top Church is a great look at the middle of the map, but how did you just end up escaping there right there? I mean, Round's really got to be able to lock down that kill at the very least, as Bio now finds their 19th kill. Now into prime position to be able to open the floodgates for the Zips to be able to resurface themselves onto 1, and there's still a lot of time left to battle over. If you are the Buckeyes, you have to send players to at least battle for the scrap. If these 30 seconds get completely conceded and you fall flat, which is starting to look like the battle for these P2 spawns, it's not going to be looking too good unless the Buckeyes can break early for this initial time onto 2, but as Vintage does get taken down to the backside of the column, they can see this back 10 seconds, the Zips looking in firm control as far as what is considered the 1 to 2 rotation.
Yeah, this pacing is almost a 1-for-1 for what we saw from Ohio State and Berlin, but it's not providing the same kind of lucrative success on Tuscan as it had been in map number 1, largely because they're looking for rotation at the 30-second mark. And if Akron breaks at that point, there is nobody for Ohio State to contest that mid-hard point time. Eventually, they come back to get the scrap, but it leaves them a little bit short-sighted on these rotations late for some important moments. So the first 20 seconds, just to use this as an example for Akron, here on column have been largely uncontested on the hard point. There's been a couple of plays for spawns, but once we get past the 30-second mark, Akron says, you can have them. We'll just try to finesse from the front. And as we see one more 1v1 with Round occur by Arxes, once again, it's the scrap time that's looking good for Akron.
You know that Akron do not want the Buckeyes to get set up all pretty inside of 3. They're setting a lot of players early, to your point there, Allen. Again, around that 30-25 second margin to be able to try to battle for the rotation, but this comes through of who can finesse better for the scrap time, and it's actually going to be Packin to be the breadwinner there. Arxes also has the streak to be used. We'll end up using it in the fact that they take down a teammate outside of Vines. That's going to be very frustrating. That could be in your entry point to maybe try to break in early. Now you're just hoping that the Zips, especially for Thieves outside of maps, can find value. They'll be cut down before Zips can even potentially see themselves a break. going to be about, like, I don't know, 35, 40 seconds gone inside 3.
Thieves needs to come help this. Thieves is still #1 in blue. He's still watching over towards rooftops. You have to come help this break. Arxies will get through, but no one's dealing with Vintage on the back Godheady. He's able to turn that into a double. Finally gets traded, but Packin has gotten his way over through the L-turn, and wow. So Akron, once again, will see limited to no time whatsoever on the monument, or pardon me, on the fountain hardpoint. And now all of a sudden, as kills start to turn in favor of Ohio State on the rotation, you need to see a perfect hold from Akron. Neither team could perfectly hold this hardpoint last time we were here.
No, it was a very quick break, around the 50-second margin that the Buckeyes were able to break inside 4 early, but Zips trying to rectify that going in towards this set. Starting to deal with players initially, but opening 10 seconds, that wasn't the frustration. They came through around, again, that 48-second margin as the Buckeyes are now resurfacing themselves outside of the East Ruins. He tried to be dealt with. The back spawns will be in favor for the Zips going forward. As the pinch play does get recognized, the Zips will meet them at the doors, holding on to the initial 20.
They will lose spawns here, though, will Akron. So with that, numbers will start to facilitate a Buckeye break. 4 straight kills once again coming through. As Akron, maybe a bit too bunkered up inside of the church, will fall. Kills on the second attempt also turning up in favor of Ohio State. Another huge lead starting to amount here for the Ohio State, and with that, it's looking like a foregone conclusion. One more hit from Akron from the side door. Needs to get essentially a 2v4 situation. Thieves has done well to keep his life. Another 1v1 with Packet just to extend this game, but will not happen. So now Akron have to forfeit some of this rotation. No, they're just going to full flood this, and Round has just won the game. 2 kills through courtyard. And well, I was about to say, the Buckeyes actually, I thought for maybe a second we are going to find that final tick on P4, but not the case. And wow, that's going to be a 250 to 153, an exact identical replica of the scoreline we saw on map #1, and we're going to go to a 5th.
We are going to go to a 5th, Alan. And look, I think when you're mostly looking at the Buckeyes, again, they're able to almost flourish in the overall scrappiness that is Hardpoint. That's all fair game. They're able to, again, find very unique timings when it comes down to be able to break in for initial time, to be able to hold on for influential time, specifically on that P3 hill. I mean, there were a lot of woes that I could go into a whole podcast or for Zips not being able to be broken into. They were even gifted spawns over by the rooftops to be able to break inside 3 earlier, but even still, I digress, because the Buckeyes, when it comes down to Hardpoint, they're able to play their game, and that is a Fast and Furious game style. Even mind you, Round was not as big as a benefactor in that Tuscan Hardpoint as they were in the Berlin, but that's just what this entire team of the Buckeyes are able to absolutely flourish in, being able to work these pinches and coordinate themselves very kindly to be able to get themselves in towards favorable spawns, to be able to break in for some very, very crucial time. But hey, 2-3-5, that's a very realistic look at when it comes down to being able to take top teams down. And that could very much so be what the Zips are almost relying on. So what they're going to have to rely on if they want to remain at the top of the leaderboard in this pool.
Wow. Weird things going through. That much is for sure. And it's just, look, regardless of the outcome of this match, this Akron team's not top 25. I'll say that much. You can't be missing this much on Hardpoint and be a top 25 right now in the CCL. And on the opposite side, you know, depending on the outcome, I wouldn't even argue that the Buckeyes are a top 25 team right now. And I think just based on the performances that we've been able to kind of relate to in the past, seeing these two teams come together tonight, I think both of us were kind of expecting to see, okay, proving point for both these two teams. Let's see how clean the gameplay is. And largely, we haven't been treated to that. A lot of missed cues for Akron throughout both these hard points, and the same was said for the search and destroy and the control from Ohio State, leads us to a Berlin map #5, where I'm just hoping we see, you know, a little bit of a deeper playbook here for Ohio State, minus just we're just going to come flood through mid-map at you and see if we can just take over some of that kind of key positioning through that broken hallway. Because I just don't feel like that's going to be enough of a PowerPoint for them to really contest, whether it be on the defense, either the A or the B site, or be able to freely rotate to either of those two bomb sites. So it's been a very strange affair, that much is for sure. But it does lead us to a map 5 in this rivalry battle, at least in some form. Obviously not playing in the same conference, but only about 120 miles from one another are these two schools, and a lot is on the line pride-wise more than anything else.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, it's one of these things that when it comes down to, and why we continuously say is that both these teams, I'm agreeing with you that I don't think that either of these two teams are a top 25 team, is that, again, there's a lot of consideration, there's a lot of openings and opportunities. I can hear it, like, when we're mid-cast, like, you're calling for, like, this one thing, and it could end up coming through, but it's recognizing, specifically on hard points when it comes down to the zips, when do we need to get aggressive? What do we do off this one position? A little bit of hesitation coming through in hard points and being able to definitively win this matchup in 3-0, that if we saw a decisive action on that Berlin hard point through a lot of different opportunities and openings, we would have probably been already setting up our second match right now, Alan. But because that's not the case, they're allowing the Buckeyes to be able to run over them, almost pub stomp them when it comes down to the hard points, because it feels like they're going for broke. They're playing like a team that has nothing to lose, especially for hard points.
Right.
And the same thing could be said about the search and destroy. Now, that said, going in towards map number 5, you brought up one very key point, and that's the battle over the middle of the map. On Tuscan, you can certainly get away with such, I guess, egregious play style. The middle of the map is very, very influential. It's going to be a lot more difficult when it comes down to this Berlin search and destroy. Middle of the map, as good as it may be, you have to be able to turn that middle of the map where P5 does reside into either trying to get inside the concourse, trying to influence that one cheeky angle from the middle of the map inside the upper courtyard on rotating players on the backside of fire, or you have to be able to convert that into middle of the map pressure and to be able to clear out the B lane. You cannot just rely on getting yourself in the middle of the map. And that goes for both these two teams, because we saw Arxies really try to influence themselves. The same for Bio when it comes down to the zips there on the Tuscan hardpoint, or Tuscan search and destroy, excuse me. And the same thing could be said on the opposite side for Round, as well as Vintage when it came down to the Tuscan search and destroy. Cannot flank play as much as you would hope for. Berlin, when it comes down to search, plays a lot bigger than it does there on Tuscan.
Well, here we go. Akron on the offense first. 4-man stack immediately over towards A, with Bio watching over the top of this, breaking some of this kind of fogged up glass. Is Feeves looking for any point of entry, but Ohio State, here we go. Back to the middle of the map. It's Vintage number 8, who's already in a position to try to flank if this execute comes through. Bio is not in a position to read that this has already happened, and Round is just waiting for them to bust down these doors before he kind of pokes his head up from behind the desk and starts taking, well, the liberties around these Akron players who are just trying to work their way towards a bomb plant. Still, not looking yet is Round. Bomb being planted. Round, at what point do you try to check this? The answer is he doesn't. And as Feeves tries to slip away, Vintage and Round will capitalize on 2 eliminations, leaving just the last members of the Zips inside the site. Packen will tally the third, and it all falls on to Storm for a 1v3.
Storm's in a pretty good spot, but it's about reading the situation when it comes around, and, well, and end up having 4 arms and 2 heads, I guess, to be able to take gunfights on both different sides. But very, very interesting opening there from Round. I was right there with you, bud. I honestly thought that they were playing off the sound cue when the door did get busted open. Could have been muffled, maybe, from all the gunshots. I'm not too sure. But regardless of the matter, play almost gets reset on the opposite side in a post-plant situation for Vintage just to bust through the concourse stairs and be able to influence themselves to be able to find that one player of Storm that was in a potential clutch position. But yeah, when it comes down to Akron, offensively, again, being able to clear away as much information as possible to at least get that plant. The Buckeyes, for Vintage being in that position in the bottom door, again, playing potentially for the retake. But offensive rounds was the biggest woe when it came down to Buckeyes. On that search there on Tuscan, big old stun check will end up finding Feeves potentially over on the staircase. It's actually going to slow up the offense considerably. This 3-1 offense is all play to make a lot of noise over at A, so that way Round can get inside the B hut for free, and they will.
Yep. Absolutely the case. Bio has the bomb planted right under his nose. Although, to be fair, he does have a sniper rifle, so there really was no contest possible over through that B site. Nice shot. Good patience from Bio as Round not successfully able to exit. And oh my goodness, look at the angle from Bio. Catches Adi through a sliver of the plankage around the BC side. So now it's really down to Ohio State. Can you find success in the back? Vintage will reveal his position. Bio, the closest one forward, has to play for a defuse, and Packen is watching this. There is just not enough clearance here from Akron, as Packen will keep his life. Feeves has not committed to this play, and also will not be able to win the gunfight. No time for a defuse, and even though there's impressive shots from Bio, would ultimately lead to the Buckeyes up 2-0.
Hey, that was literally the only thing that happened in the round for the Zips. It was that Bio just had some zany shots. The drag shot, headshot onto one, the very interesting and nerdy angle through. I didn't even know that you could actually see. I thought that the wood actually dropped all the way down to the concrete, but that could be the case. I'm taking that in the rank play.
I think you can break that wood, by the way.
You can. No, you absolutely can.
Okay.
Yeah, it is destroyable. But even still, it's the hesitation that comes through specifically for Feeves. If the bomb gets planted at B and you are that roaming SMG player, you have to clear out the warehouse. You cannot hesitate. You have to fly through, and you have to clear it out. That is the contest spot that will win rounds when the bomb is planted at B. But Zips going back towards round one, trying to get inside A early.
Yep, and well, Ohio State's doing the exact same thing. This time, it's Round and Vintage playing off of the flank. Packin just watching from afar, and for him to find one elimination, that is more than good enough. Ohio State wants to make sure there are no lurkers to the middle of the map, and then they'll have the full force of 3 members hitting off of a pinch or the full flank itself. Packin cooking up a nade. That will not hit. Oh, actually, it might hit his teammate. Yeah, it does. Adi's going to have to wait now. Stun also not going to get information, so Thieves will stay tucked in this desk work and then maybe even just tucked in Adi a little bit too. Hello there, friend. Tie your shoes for you. So now it's down to Round and Vintage. The long flank play. Bio denies it with the pistol, and Akron, they will hold their post plan set up off of Thieves just staying tucked in the corner.
I too enjoy getting my shoes shined before I go on a nice little train ride. Yeah, it was what a silly search round. I honestly think that when it comes down to Akron, like, that was the commitment, the execute that we had got to see in many different rounds there on the Tuscan Search and Destroy. And they need to be able to surface that continuously when it comes down to their offensive rounds. That was their biggest success there on the Tuscan. Buckeyes, though, still have that 1-round lead. Bio had some really impressive snipe shots on the previous defense, but the Buckeyes are committed towards this A side. There are 2 players here defensively.
Oh, they're just going to fly forward. Thieves, flank. No, going to wait. And if the timing is good, yeah, he's actually going to see some players through the crack of the door that moves quickly. Adi will drop. Help is now arriving in the form of Arxes. Bio looking to try to be a part of this round, trying to contest this front door, and we'll be able to turn that into an elimination. 3v2. Ohio State trying to keep this hold. And yeah, they may have just done it just down to Thieves, nowhere to go. And Ohio State, it's just the speed and aggression here on this map is working out much more successfully. And Akron needs to realize that all of this from Ohio State has been purely through the middle of the map, both defensively and offensively. You got to get an AR watching that cross through P5.
Yeah, absolutely. Why haven't we seen a player up in top fire, specifically in Automaton, to be able to watch that cross? Alan, it's an adaptation that needs to come all the way through. We recognize it here on the casting desk. It's up to you, Zips, to be able to adapt in-game, especially in a map number 5, one as crucial as this. Going in towards this offensive round, though, the Zips not feeling comfortable towards that A zone or A site anymore. Want this B site early. Well, they're dodging a lot of nades, Art Thieves, but they're going to have some company inside this hut once they enter.
Yep. And even if Adi keeps his life, look how far forward Round has gotten. He took this route through the middle of the map again, and now we can re-clear out mailroom. Yeah, Storm finds 1 kill, but oh, wait a second. Round doesn't actually get the trade. Storm gets to back away with their life. And that leads to a 4v2 with the bomb planted. Round missing a major opportunity. And as Packin hopes and maybe even prays for an elimination at range, this retake is going to be a bit stifled just by the distance that Packin has to move, and it won't even start. Wow, okay. So Akron win the individual gunfights up front in Closenal and kind of dodge a bullet from Round on the flank, and that turns into a second round for the Zips.
Yeah, I mean, that play does not come through unless you have some help inside that B hut. Let's be candid here. If it was a 1v1 and you end up losing that, the bomb gets dropped on the hut and all the players can rotate over, and then Round's position can take a more keen focus through that front door of mail to be able to look at that cross over by the B street. Does not play out. Again, we continuously ask ourselves, Akron, are you going to have an AR player or maybe a sniper watch the middle of the map this time around? Does not seem to be the case. Their immediate adaptation. Let's just send more players over towards A. I like it.
Stuns and nades going to the backside of the archways. Nothing there, so Round will sniff out this position. Maybe even try to use this. And, well, Bio's learned his lesson. Any play over towards A with nades may not mean there's not a plan happening at B. And as Round falls, the copycat paste that we saw from Buckeyes on their last offense will not find success this time around, and Akron have fully read this, and they've moved their defense accordingly.
Oh, it was a great setup as well. RX's just going to wait for maybe a push to come through the back. Adi has to get mixed. He does find Bio on the backside of the docks. Now, they don't know that Storm is still over here. We'll at least find the stun check, but if you allow this bomb to go down, oh, man, this post-plant situation might be the death of you. I mean, you got Akron all the way in the back of the boathouse.
What a missed opportunity for Akron. You know that they've picked up the bomb with that kill. It should have been a stun and a nade instantaneously. Don't allow that post plant to come through, but now Adi just has to play their life, and they have done so well avoiding Arxes. On the defuse, though, is Storm. Someone has to check this. Someone has to check this. Is Vintage going to get here in time? No, they won't. The bomb gets defused and Akron, what? How?
That round is the, the only analogy I can really think of, Alan, is that they literally just ripped the rug out from underneath their feet.
Yeah.
they had the post plan and everything. The timing just to hop on the bomb. Oh, Lamar would be proud. Going forward, though, all evened up in round number 7. This is the cross that you needed the entire time. How many players did Bio end up seeing? Very tough to be able to tell just off of the CODcaster. Again, we get all the UI and all the spectator that comes through. Packen will drop Storm in the middle of the map. Early numbers advantage for the defense, and that's going to slow up the Zips considerably.
The only reason that Akron actually puts an AR in that position is because they wanted to hit their SMGs through mid. So they're thinking there's going to be an AR battle at range. That doesn't actually occur as Packen had a tighter angle around the topside statue. So now a 3v4, 50 seconds on the clock, and Akron have to make a decision on which bomb site do we go to, let alone how do we get there? Because you've got a crossfire set up over for the Buckeyes defense at A, and over towards B. If Adi just finds a single kill, that would be enough. He's got Packen able to watch his cross. Thieves just holding the gun up, looking for a way to cross the street. He is looking both ways, so his mother would be proud, but you have to get into this bomb site. And with only 25 seconds on the clock, and with him falling, now it just turns to a pretty much an impossible 2v4 situation where you have to flood towards B. Adi just needs to get one. He's done it. And he slips away. Arxie quickly trying to find the trade, has been able to do so, but the problem is there are so many more Buckeyes to deal with. And Arxie is very aware of that. And from here, you just play with your clock. No time for a plant. Ohio State will take the 7th round.
Very frustrating when it comes down to the Zips. I mean, if you're Arxie in that position, you almost have to... I'm not too sure if they had any more stuns or nades or if they still had them at all. I did not see there at the end of the round, but even still, if you are that lone player playing on the backside of the tower, you have to cause a ruckus and a half and a numbers disadvantage over at A. You have to then force out the fake play to potentially come all the way through, and maybe you can bait out Adi, who is just continuously playing inside that hut defensively for Buckeyes. It has to be read and aware. You have to be aware of that going forward if you are the Zips, especially for an offensive round. Buckeyes going forward. No more fake plays over towards A. It got scouted out wonderfully the previous time around. They're going towards this mailroom control first and foremost, and maybe trying to bait out an unforced error from the Zips to try to push on forward. But they've never been the aggressor going forward on any of these search rounds down. This could be a very long while before we see the Buckeyes try to encroach forward.
Really just falls on to what does Bio see here. Number 3 in blue, the only defender towards the B site. There is no help for him whatsoever. Rounds nades do not tag, so Bio has stayed concealed for now. And here comes the hit. Ohio State on the way in. 3 members strong on this. Shots tagged for Bio, but no kills will be there. He also has no utility to play with. So the only real position for the Zips to work with here is the fact that Bio has already kind of cleared things up, but nobody's watching the cross. The Buckeyes get out of the B site for free, and the flank is just not in time. 30 seconds on the clock, and this play from Arxis and Thieves is taking way too long.
Way too long. It needed to happen about 10 seconds ago, Alan. The bomb gets planted. You need to clear out the back warehouse. Now it's a battle of attrition. Now you're just hoping that maybe you get some timing. Storm does take down Adi. You still have ARs to be able to deal with over inside of the warehouse. And at this point, Thieves is just going to try to clear it out. Round has been able to find the timing on the backside of the B site. They clear out the hut. There's just not enough time to be able to find the kill. A little bit of do-si-do around the dock side. Storm will go down. Last player alive will be RC's. Not like it really mattered at all. And again, it comes down to the hesitation. This goes back to, what was it, 2 rounds ago? When the Buckeyes ended up having that B bomb plan again, you had Thieves in that same exact position to be able to almost make a play to clear out the back warehouse. But the second the bomb gets planted, and I mean the legitimate same frame that the bomb gets planted, you have to then start clearing out the back warehouse. That is the immediate contest spot. That is the God spot that will end up shutting down any diffuse play. And it just does not come all the way through. Very frustrating for the Zips when it comes down to a lot of these retakes over by the B site. Now we're going to see an aggressive play by them to try to stronghold their way in towards A.
Well, we're going to get a 7-man hit over here. 4 members from the Zips, 3 from Ohio State. And first blood is good for Arxis. Adi has not rotated yet. Thieves looking for a backside stun check. Nothing there, so at least you've cleared off part of the desks. And as Thieves goes to clear off the very usual spot, eliminations will start to follow. Adi, 1v4, has found the first already. Thieves looking for the plant. is able to secure it. So now the long play has to come through over towards the platform, and Bio already rotated, waiting for it. The Zips stay alive for us around 10.
Okay. Again, you said it. They're staying alive. But what still needs to happen here is not a dance number. They need to be able to adapt in a lot of these rounds. Whether it's the fake play that happened over towards A, they were able to then read that and stop it, at least on one offense for the Buckeyes. But the Buckeyes now through, 2 rounds have found value offensively to be able to get that bomb planted over by B. Or they can aggressively hit over towards A. Both have been successful for the Buckeyes. And it looks like they're actually going to go with the former, at least off the opening rip, to try to work their way over towards A. Storm and RCs, they have to be able to find value as Adi's going to stun check around here. You have to understand that if you are the Zips, it could very much so be a fake play. The Buckeyes are just committing towards it.
Yeah, this time those stuns do not just form off of a feint. But the Zips are on the back. They look to try to maybe cut off this post-plant rotation. The problem is they don't find any eliminations except for Storm. Picks up the MP40 midair like John Wick and keeps his way forward. Now the last 2 members of Ohio State, they run right towards Phoebes, but not able to find the kill. 1v2, last chance is on Storm's shoulders. 22 seconds to play. And for Ohio State, they have split up where they're going to hit from. There's the first kill onto Packet. Last player left is Round, and he's completely slipped the net. Will they meet? Will they meet here through this window? They sure will. Storm off the gunfight, takes the 1v2. Akron stay alive once again, and it's going to be around 11.
Oh, that is where you are lucky to have teammates. I mean, from the way that we just saw it, from their POV, you did not see Round through that stained glass. Maybe he did. I'm not too sure. Regardless of the matter, the confirmation and the timing from Round just simply had to run away, but did not commit. They knew that they had to end up checking it one more time. Such a tough call to be in when you are some of these young collegiate athletes here in the CCL, to almost have that trust to be able to hit it back through the outside concourse and try to resurface out through the back door, but does not come to be. Now we have a date here on Valentine's Day, round 11 between these 2 teams, Alan. And the Akron Zips are going to go back to what worked for them. They're actually going to aggressively hit over towards A, and the Buckeyes, they have no player in position to try to deal with this, at least off the rip.
The thing about this is the same defensive look for the Buckeyes that they had in the first defense. Through the middle of the map, here come Round and Vintage once again, but the Zips have already cleared off this A zone and found a kill through. They're going to continue to push. Packen is still kind of flirting with this, and now a post plant can start to occur over towards Lobby. It's just down to Round and Vintage. Arxes finds the 3rd elimination, now just down to 1. A 1v4 for Vintage, makes his way up the staircase, finds the 1st and the 2nd, but the 3rd will elude him, and it'll be the Akron Zips to stay undefeated and take down the Scarlet and Gray of Ohio State in 11th round.
What? Wow, that's insane. I mean, like, that little tussle right there that happened over top of the AS&D, I honestly thought that we were going to see a lot more kills come through, especially for the Buckeyes. I mean, they had automatons up in that upper courtyard area, at least looking at it. You did not need to push. You did not need to push. You just needed to be able to at least concede the space.
Wait for the flank.
Wait for the flank. You had to throw a nade in there, get a player weak, and then you wait for the flank to come all the way through. Ooh, what a weird best of 5. I'm not going to lie. Again, college COD in a nutshell. Sloppy, albeit. You got to be able to tip it, at least from the Zips. Again, the gut, the resilience, the tenacity, more words. I honestly just really got to say that the Zips to be able to have that gut check call. Like, look, our last offense push over towards A, it went in our favor. They do it one more time, 4 players strong. You called it out wonderfully, Alan, that the biggest thing that blew that play up about 3-5 rounds ago when they tried that last time was the flank play, and they finally ended up reading it. But one thing to also consider is that they just were able to collect, I should say, off of the unforced errors for the Buckeyes, who just, again, all 5 maps that were playing just way too fast. Vintage goes 12-5, sure, but so long as you're making disjointed plays like that, it's just never going to work out in your favor.
Wow. So with that, Akron have officially, I think we could say it at this point.
Yeah.
I don't see them losing 2 more matches anywhere in this schedule. They will be a top cut team from stage number 1. Ohio State, though, solid through the hard points, sloppy in the first search and the control, and then just kind of unfortunately could not lock down round 10 nor 11 there against the Zips in the final. But they fall to 2 losses, which means, pending, of course, that Miami University of Ohio, if they can win out the rest of their schedule, it would be a tiebreaker situation against Bowling Green State and the Falcons between them and Ohio State, which I think would just, if it were to go to head-to-head, I believe Ohio State holds the advantage there. But regardless, things have gotten extremely interesting as far as who makes that top-tier cut out of this fourth pool of the Midwest. And, well, for Akron, number 24, I think you'll happy to have at least on their name this week, but I would be surprised if the panel keeps them there after the performance here, because that was not a clean 5 maps from Akron.
Definitely need to go back to the drawing board. You know, again, collegiate athletes definitely want to take a focus on their studies first and foremost, play Call of Duty when it is able to, but you know, going in towards that second stage, if you want to consider yourself to be a top 25 team here in the listing week in and week out, you have to be able to showcase a lot more, I guess, efficiency and emergency when it comes down to a lot of these plays. Too much hesitation when it came down to that hard point, and especially in the search to destroy. I mean, I almost felt like Alan and I were going to collectively just rip both of our hairs out with the amount of hesitation that we saw to be able to clear out the backside of the warehouse. Yeah, it was a series win at the end of it, but I think at the end of the day, going forward, there is still time for the Zips to be able to use those last 2 matches to be able to rectify a lot of the issues that we saw today, especially headed in towards that second stage.
Well, that's just series number 1 on the evening. We've got a battle of the top 10 out in the Western region coming up. Arizona State, number 6, going up against Grand Canyon in the 9th position, boasting some pretty formidable challengers players. We'll see how they fare in the next upcoming battle right after the break.